Good afternoon from a now cloudy and a little cool Villa Park, where top four villains welcome the bottom three hammers. We have fireworks, we have claret and blue flares on an afternoon where the two most famous adorners of the famous claret and blue go head to head under those milky grey skies in the West Midlands. Aston Villa are reaping the benefits of teams around them dropping points this weekend. West Ham have the ultimate motivation, knowing 3 points will take them out of the relegation zone no matter what happens in North London. We'll of course keep you up to date with the score between Spurs and Forest throughout the afternoon. Former Forest and Ipswich defender Luke Chambers is with me today. Nuno Espirito Santo called this and every game now for West Ham pivotal, and he ain't wrong.
He is not wrong. Every game is that old saying, a cup final, and it has to be now. You are fighting for your place in the Premier League, but they have been the team for me that have responded, especially over the last 6 to 8 weeks, with the performances, with the fixtures and with the results. So they've certainly clawed themselves back into real contention, and today with the other two we keep speaking about so heavily in Spurs and Nottingham Forest playing each other today, what a massive opportunity for them today to take 3 points.
Brilliant night here at Villa Park on Thursday when Villa beat Lille 2-0 to book their place in the last 8 of the Europa League. But it's how they follow it up. 4th in the table. West Ham, on the other hand, are 18th and in the bottom 3 on goal difference. But the form of both sides tells a very different tale. Villa have lost 3 Premier League games on the spin for the first time in over 3 years. West Ham have lost just 1 of their last 6 in the league, 2 in their last 12 in all competitions, and from being 7 points adrift in January, they now look like the side that's most likely to get themselves out of it.
And it's if anything, it's what you want is momentum coming into these last few weeks of the season, and they certainly have it. You mentioned their form of late. They've drawn against Man City previously, drawn against Bournemouth, drawn against Brentford, and they have to try and turn the odd one of those two into 3 points, and then they'll be looking up very, very quickly. But credit to Nuno Espirito Santo. He's transformed this team and he's really got the fan base on side. They're all pulling in the right direction, and he seems to be getting a real tune out of his squad.
Brilliant atmosphere here at Villa Park as per usual as the teams came out, along with all the fireworks and the flamethrowers. It's almost as if the gods above also listened, and we've got a little bit of sunshine on the pitch. Now Villa make 5 changes from the team that beat Lille here on Thursday night, as Cash, Konsa, Barkley, Dean and Watkins all start at the expense of Bogard, Lindelof, Martson, Douglas Luiz and Tammy Abraham. And Yuri Tielemans is back in a matchday squad for the first time since the end of January when he injured his ankle. He's got nothing short of great ovations every time he's been mentioned. West Ham were unchanged from the team that drew 1 apiece with Manchester City 8 days back, but Jean-Claire Todibo was injured in the warm-up. So Freddie Potts comes into the 11. Local boy Finlay Herrick joins the bench. No Crescencio Somerville. He misses out as expected. The West Ham players are in a huddle at the moment. They have navy blue shorts and socks and a cream jersey. Be pleased to hear that the man in the middle, Paul Tierney, didn't find himself in the middle of that huddle today, as he did at Stamford Bridge, famously or infamously now, a week ago. Aston Villa, of course being the home team, get the honour of wearing that all-famous claret and blue shirts with sky blue socks and white shorts. And West Ham will get us underway with a long ball back to Mads Hermansen, who clears it away long down the right-hand side. Premier League Sunday on BBC Radio 5 Live. Pleasure to have your company on 5 Sports Extra here for the duration of the afternoon, as Ollie Watkins gets a good ball to the left wing from John McGinn. He pivots around and goes back to Rodgers again, who'll dig out a crossfield pass to Matty Cash on the right-hand side. Wonderfully plucked out of the sky, laid off to Jadon Sancho, and he sees the support of his Belgian teammate Amadou Onana. And going back to that late change to the 11 because of the injury to Todibo, what has that done to impact the way that West Ham have lined up here, Luke Chambers?
Well, they look like they've started, as opposed to that back 3 that they wanted to start with, they've gone into a back 4. Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, Diasisasi and Diouf's dropped into that left-hand side role. Pablo will drop out onto that left midfield position, and Fernandes is almost playing off the number 10 from Castaño. So not the ideal preparation they would have wanted under Nuno, but certainly looking to impose themselves early on.
And that's the West Ham 11. The Aston Villa 11 sees Emi Martinez in goal, a back four of Cash, Konsa, Pau Torres, who's making his 100th appearance today for the Villains, and Luca Dean at left full-back. In midfield it's Barkley and Onana, with Morgan Rogers in the 10, McGinn to the right of a forward three, and Jadon Sancho on the left with Ollie Watkins, the number 9. We played a minute and a half. It is 0-0 here, as it is in North London, between Spurs and Nottingham Forest. Such a crucial afternoon down to the bottom of the Premier League table. West Ham know that if they win here this afternoon, they will move out of the bottom 3 for the first time of any meaning, really, because they did jump out for less than 24 hours a week ago with that point against Manchester City. But they win today, they are out no matter what happens in North London. They're out for a whole lot longer than just 24 hours, and that, if anything else, Luke, will be a real psychological lift.
Yeah, absolutely, and they understand what's at stake now, and Nuno Espirito Santo's made it very, very clear early on that they have to take every single opportunity that comes their way, and it's a real chance for them today against the Villa side that have struggled in form of late and were let off in the week from real disappointing results from teams around them. So they're certainly hanging on to that third place and that that fourth place and that top 4 finish, because they're desperately trying to get back in that Champions League fixture.
Or can they punish the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool, who lost yesterday? Manchester United got a draw on Friday night on the south coast at Bournemouth, albeit dropping 2 points there, as Cash back in a starting 11 for the first time since the 4th of this month, when they were beaten by 4-1 against Chelsea. He's been nursing a calf problem, and Torres steps out of defence for Aston Villa into the midfield for Barkley. Barkley holds the ball under his foot for a moment, surveys his options and waits for something to open up for him. Nothing does, so exchanges a couple of passes with Onana. Now to Cash on the right wing, fizzes the ball, trying to find the opposite fullback Digne, but he never really caught a hold of it as he would have liked, and instead it clattered into Barkley in the middle of the midfield, who wasn't able to bring the ball under his spell. Hermansen gets it inside his 6-yard box and plays it to Disasi, and now Diouf, and into the middle of the midfield for the youngster Freddie Potts. The late addition will have only had about 15 minutes notice or so that he was going to start here this afternoon. Diouf does well, gets the other side of Cash and into the penalty area. Low ball, well cut out at the near stick by Ezri Konsa back there, and West Ham have it again, albeit back by the halfway line.
Yeah, brilliant play from West Ham to just play through Aston Villa's pressure from one side to the next, and then real fantastic ball from Freddie Potts coming in late, like you say, to start the game. A lovely ball over the top of Matty Cash's left shoulder in for Diouf, but he couldn't quite find that cross as he approached the 6-yard box. But early warning sign for Aston Villa. They're not going to have it all their own way against this West Ham team that are seemingly playing with a lot of confidence.
West Ham's form over the last 10 games, good enough for 7th in the Premier League table, whereas, as already alluded to, Aston Villa have lost 3 Premier League games in a row. They've not lost 4 in a row since Steven Gerrard was the manager here, coming on for 4 years ago now. And Unai Emery, who stood on the edge of his technical area, dressed all in dark clothing with those pundit pumps that you so often see. I know you've got a pair of them, Luke Chambers. They are black with white soles. Has never lost 4 consecutive league games at any point in his entire illustrious managerial career. Disasi has it for West Ham near the halfway line, right-footed sweeping ball out in the direction of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Couldn't quite reach it. It will go out for a throwing, I think, next to the corner flag. No, it'll be a goal kick instead. 5 minutes played here. It is 0-0, and Aston Villa in a hurry to get the ball out towards Matty Cash on the right-hand side. And what you would say is they ended last calendar year, Villa, with remarkable form, won 12 of the last 14 games in 2025, but have won just 3 of their first 11 Premier League matches in 2026. But they have so been hampered by injuries.
Oh, they have, and I think that's been a telling story for them this season.
Ball down the right. That's a good ball for Ollie Watkins to squeeze into the penalty area. Lays it off and almost on the end of it. It will be a corner kick. Good break in the end. Jadon Sancho rolling the ball into the 6-yard box. Watkins couldn't quite get on the end of it, but it will be a first corner kick of the game for Aston Villa.
So simple play from Aston Villa. Matty Cash gets the ball just inside Aston Villa's half by the touchline and just lays an easy ball down the inside right for Jadon Sancho to run onto it. Delivers the ball across. It looks like it's going to be a tap-in, but Watkins at the back post. Mavropanos, brilliant sliding interception. Corner for Villa.
He's been excellent of late. Mavropanos scored last weekend. Here comes the in-swinging ball into the most crowded of 6-yard box. Onana jumped for it. Sancho tried to then play it into the penalty area once more. I don't think I've ever seen a more crowded 6-yard box than that. Mats Hermansson is not the tallest of goalkeepers. He stands at maybe 6 foot if he's lucky, dripping wet early in the morning before he starts to shrink, and he was completely and utterly lost in amongst all those big bodies. It's going to be a throw-in that Matty Cash can take about 10 yards up the touchline down the Villa right as they kick from right to left in this first half, away from the famous Holt end. Onana the target once more. Well cleared away by Tati Castellanos, only as far as Digne! Left-footed from the best part of 30 yards had Hermansson diving to his right-hand side and brilliantly pushing it behind for a second corner kick in quick succession.
Brilliant long throw in from Matty Cash. Defended well initially on the 6-yard line, but Disasi. West Ham clear their lines, but they can't get it clear enough. Digne takes a steady in touch and hits a dipping left foot volley from 30 yards that nearly finds Hermansson's near post. We've lost Hermansson again in amongst all those bodies, and he's wearing bright orange. Here comes another ball right under the crossbar. It's brilliantly headed away by Mavropanos, and then there's a second attempt at goal which is hacked clear by Jared Bowen. This is really promising stuff as McGinn now is in a battle of his own with Pablo. Does well to shepherd the ball out in front of Nuno Espirito Santo, dressed in West Ham tracksuit and coat, and it will be an Aston Villa throw-in directly in front of him for Luca Digne, who just had that excellent effort a few moments ago on the replay. I think it was going about half a yard wide, but the Danish keeper wasn't to know that. No early warning signs for West Ham. The two fantastic bits of defending from Mavropanos. I think he almost headed the crossbar as he tried to clear that one off the touchline. Two fantastic deliveries from Matty Cash on this near side, right in front of us, whipped under the crossbar. And that is a player that really can affect this Aston Villa attack.
0-0 here, 8 minutes gone on 5 Sports Extra on BBC Radio 5 Live. It remains goalless between Tottenham and Nottingham Forest. That one available to listen to in the company of Jonathan Pearce and Paul Robinson at 4:30. Of course, it's Carabao Cup final day. Arsenal against Manchester City. Steve Crossman, John Murray, Ian Dennis, Matt Upson and many more there for you at Wembley Stadium on the weekend that Aston Villa are celebrating the last time they won a trophy, now 30 years ago, that League Cup final where they beat Leeds in 1996. The cup-winning team will be paraded on the pitch here at half-time. Onana has it for Aston Villa, lays it off for England international Ezri Konsa. He will go away with Thomas Tuchel's camp this week, albeit not until either Friday evening or Saturday morning, when he and Morgan Rogers and 9 other players will join the England group. And at that point, Tuchel says he'll release a whole horde of players as well. So they will be involved for the game against Japan, which is a week on Tuesday. The others will play against Uruguay on Friday. A bit reckless from Cash on the far side, clattering through Mateus Fernandes, who himself has just received his first international call-up to Portugal, still down on the ground a couple of yards inside of West Ham territory on the far touchline as the Hammers kick from left to right. 10 minutes on the clock, almost bang on. Luke Chambers, good start for Aston Villa.
Yeah, real bright start. Obviously West Ham looking for early balls in behind. Just one over hit there by Fernandes, looking for Castaños in behind Konsa. But yeah, it's been all Villa really after the initial sort of drive forward down West Ham's left-hand side. But yeah, it's certainly going to be a real telling afternoon if West Ham can sustain the defensive solidity from this early barrage from Aston Villa.
That's a lovely touch from Digne, who sees the ball drop over his shoulder, plucks it out of the sky on the top of his left boot, but he was watched all the while by Jared Bowen back there in the right fullback position for the moment. And it's one of the things, there's another guy who'll be off with England this week that you don't often see, as Rogers nearly sneaks in behind Wan-Bissaka, but Jared Bowen works both sides of the ball. He's been absolutely crucial recently, involved in 7 goals in his last 8 league matches for West Ham, but always works back too.
It just certainly seems like a stat that he's had ever since he's joined the club.
A great provider.
A goal or an assist every single game. He's such an important part to this West Ham side.
as Mavropanos has been in the early stages of this game. He scored an own goal when these two met at the London Stadium in December, albeit a very unfortunate own goal. I don't think he knew a great deal about it, but has certainly made his mark of late. Scored the equaliser against Manchester City 8 days ago, scored a penalty in the FA Cup as well. After this, West Ham's next match will be in a couple of weeks in the FA Cup, a quarter-final at home to Leeds, whilst Villa won't play now until the 9th of April when they head for Bologna in the Europa League quarter-finals. Only 6 teams in all of Europe have qualified for 3 consecutive major European quarter-finals, and Villa are one of those. In the last 3 years, as Barkley prods a ball into Ollie Watkins, and he's brought down by Freddie Potts, trying to get the other side of him. The referee, as I mentioned earlier on, Paul Tierney, will be hoping for a slightly lower profile afternoon than he had at Stamford Bridge last Saturday evening, when he first found himself hugged by Cole Palmer, and he went, safe to say, went viral, didn't he, for being in the middle of that huddle. They respected the ball, Chelsea.
Yeah, it was certainly an interesting one that probably won't be lost on too many over the next few months.
Pau Torres making his 100th Aston Villa appearance today. Rolls the ball across the defence to Conser. Forwards to McGinn, out to Cash on the right wing. Villa in the claret and blue this afternoon. West Ham in the cream off-white jerseys with dark navy blue socks and shorts under cloudy skies. The flags on top of these stand opposite us, blowing from left to right. Premier League flag, one of those. The USA flag, another, as Digne sneaks in down the left wing. He's in behind Bowen this time. Low ball, tried to find McGinn. Cut out by Malik Diouf before it could reach him. And a very important interception indeed, because he was ready to pull the trigger, McGinn. Scored on Thursday night, had eyes for another one there.
Yeah, lovely bit of play over the top from Torres. Digne's running in behind as Rodgers is coming short, sucking out Wan-Bissaka, and just for that occasion left his runner.
That's lovely footwork from Rodgers. He steps away from Mateus Fernandes, a yard outside of the left edge of the West Ham penalty area, and wins his side a free kick. He's such a tricky footballer, Morgan Rodgers, particularly when he cuts in on that right foot off of this left wing. 10 goals in all competitions so far this season, but none in his last 8. It was his brilliance in the second half in East London in December, which is what won the game for Aston Villa. A 3-2 scoreline that day. We take that sort of entertainment today.
Yeah, that's where they need to be finding Morgan Rodgers, in and around those 18-yard box areas, not just standing back 30-40 yards from goal. He just has to affect it a little bit more than he has done of late.
So this free kick is about probably 9 or 10 yards up from the byline, and Cash goes short to Sancho, rolls it across now to McGinn, left-footed, brilliant, wonderfully worked free kick from Aston Villa. There's that famous John McGinn celebration where he covers his eyes. 2 goals in 2. McGinn is back for Villa with a bang, and Aston Villa lead against West Ham by 1-0.
What a fantastic goal from John McGinn and Aston Villa, and every single member of staff that would have prepared that all week long on the training ground. A delivery from all the world you would expect to Matty Cash to just deliver towards that back post, just 2 yards outside the 18-yard box, but no, he plays it short into Jadon Sancho, who then looks like he's going to lay it into Luca Digne, who's on the D of the 18-yard box, but he misses him out, and it's a perfectly weighted delivery from Sancho into the path of John McGinn, who comes onto it with the technique of his left instep and bends it round Hermansen into that far post. Fantastic finish from John McGinn, fantastic set piece from Aston Villa. 1-0.
He caresses that ball, doesn't he? And there's so many players between him and the net to be able to thread the eye of the needle through all those bodies and see the ball nestle in the bottom corner like that. It's just so brilliant to watch as West Ham immediately try to respond. Now they have the ball in the Villa left fullback position. Cross from Jared Bowen. And Castellanos challenges for it just inside the 6-yard box. I don't think Consa knew he was there, and the Argentine striker puts his header wide. Nuno Espirito Santo turns away in disgust. He knows how good of a chance that was for his striker to equalise immediately.
I think it should have been an equaliser immediately. Real sloppy play from Aston Villa. Just should have cleared it. Luca Dean gets caught on the edge of his 18-yard box, and then it's a brilliant delivery, and Castellanos is right on the edge of the 6-yard box. He raises above Consa, a little bit of pressure in his back, and just nods it wide of that far post. Any sort of header through the back of the ball, back across Martinez. It's 1-1 for West Ham, but big chance. 16
minutes gone. Villa leading by that John McGinn goal to nil. Still goalless between Spurs and Forest in North London. Only crumb of comfort there, I guess, for both of those fan bases at the moment is that West Ham aren't winning. Earlier on at lunchtime in the Tyne-Wear derby, Sunderland won it late on at Newcastle by 2-1. Later on, the League Cup final between Manchester City and Arsenal at 4:30 live for you on BBC Radio 5 Live, and Villa have it again down the right with their tails up. And it's with Ollie Watkins, tries to drift across into the penalty area. It's in behind Rodgers, falls to Luca Dean instead, immediately supported by Barkley. Bit of space for him to have a go here. He does. It's blocked by Souček and then headed away by Potts, but only as far as Matty Cash. Every single Villa player is around 5 to 10 yards at least inside of the West Ham half at the moment, playing some really lovely stuff. Unai Emery applauding the movement, the intensity. He spoke about the confidence that the victory in the week might well give them coming back into this game and wanting to end this long block of game before the international break on a high. They are off to a good start in that department. Souček has it to Wan-Bissaka, forwards looking for Castellanos, but everywhere they look at the moment there's a claret and blue shirt, which is a problem for West Ham because they ain't playing in claret and blue this afternoon. Matty Cash sprints down the right wing, puts the brakes on, lays it off for Onana, and then goes again. Floated pass. Cash won't keep it in. Oh, he did with the outside of his left boot. Did well to do so, but it was easy for Mads Hermansen to get a hold of the ball, get a touch of it, and that's what West Ham need at the moment, isn't it, Luke Chambers? They need a spell where they can settle this down.
Well, they started relatively brightly in terms of possession and looking quietly confident, to be honest, but the goal and a little bit of pressure before that has certainly taken the wind out of their sails. They don't really seem to have any outlet at the minute. Jared Bowen's almost playing like right wing back. Can't really seem to get him as an outlet. Castellanos is dropping in deep, so when West Ham do win the ball back, where is the outlet? It's not in behind. They can't really play into his feet because both centre halves of Aston Villa in Torres and Consa are right on top of him. So anytime they're trying to play forward with intention, it just keeps getting cut out and Villa regain possession.
West Ham have it with Mavropanos. Approaches the halfway line, out to the right wing now for Jared Bowen. We've played 19 minutes, 1-0 to Villa. Bowen wants it again down that right touchline, and even those little simple passes at the moment just aren't coming off for West Ham. That can happen though, can't it, Luke? In these passages of the game where, I mentioned it a moment ago, the Villa players have got their tails up, but so do the fans, and it's just a case of trying to find a way of playing themselves back into contention once more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's never an easy place to come to, and when Aston Villa do take an early lead and come out of the traps the way they have, it's very, very difficult to settle yourself back into it, especially in the context of where they find themselves in the league.
Rodgers to the goal scorer McGinn on the edge of the West Ham penalty area. It's with Barkley. They're really sitting off him as Rodgers gets it again. Now Sancho high, pulled up socks above his knees. He rolls the ball under his studs, floats it to Onana, whose header is just wide. Hermansen knew it was going wide, waved it past, but more good play, particularly down this left-hand side, and Sancho's popping up all over the shop.
Yeah, he's really drifting off across that from that far right-hand side. He found himself right in front of us on the left-hand side now. He's just took his time. He finds himself really unopposed. Wan-Bissaka stands off him and he delivers a lovely little chip along the 6-yard box, and Onana, and along with the rest of his Aston Villa side, committing lots of numbers into that penalty area and really causing West Ham no end of problems.
Spanish centre-half Torres now has it for Villa, albeit on the right wing. He's trying to shepherd it out and win a throw-in for his side. Not able to do so, and Malik Diouf will have this throw-in instead. One of those Senegalese players who had some very bad news this week when they were told that their African Cup of Nations title was being taken away from them. Nuno said in his pre-match press conference that he gave him a hug and said, "You'll always be a champion to me." As Rodgers finds Watkins dead centre, 20 yards out. There's the overlap from Digne, left side of the penalty area, back to the edge of the 6-yard box. Disasi just about manages to smuggle it clear, and there's Bowen again, back on his own byline and doing enough to ensure that is a West Ham goal kick. Digne was, quite clearly, even from back here, and we're about 40-50 yards away, you could see that came off of his foot last. He turned to Paul Tierney, the referee, and looked completely and utterly flabbergasted. How could you possibly give that as a goal kick? That's because it was. 21 minutes have been played. Villa leading 1-0, have been leading for around 6 or 7 minutes now, thanks to that excellent John McGinn strike. Check it out on Match of the Day this evening on BBC One at 10:30. Luca Digne has it, gives it to Watkins, back to Rodgers. Watkins immediately turns, gets on his bike, runs down the left-hand side and receives it back again from Rodgers. He's going to have a run at Mavropanos, cuts past him, hits it, trying to whip it with that right foot into the far top corner, but couldn't get enough bend on it this time. Goal kick.
Certainly seems like he's come out of the tunnel this afternoon with real intention, real intent to try and make an impact. And as you hear his name ring round Villa Park at the minute, he's running into channels, he's showing for feet, he's coming, he's setting things off, middle of the halfway line, he's spinning in behind. He's certainly playing like an Ollie Watkins that we've been used to seeing over these last few seasons, and just stepped inside the 18-yard box, tried to find the far corner, just couldn't quite whip his right boot round that into that far corner to make it 2-0 to Villa. But real positive signs for him and a Villa perspective. Not
short of motivation this weekend, having missed out on Thomas Tuchel's 35-man squad for the internationals against Uruguay and Japan. We've already seen Danny Welbeck this weekend, who also missed out, make his own point, although insisting afterwards to our colleague Jonathan Pearce on Match of the Day that he's not really giving too much thought or energy to something that he can't control in the selection for either this international camp or the World Cup that is to come this summer, which of course you can listen to on BBC Radio 5 Live. Morgan Rodgers and Esri Konsa are in that England camp. Matty Cash is going away with Poland, Martinez with Argentina, Luca Digne with France, and Onana with Belgium, where he'll be joined by Yuri Tielemans, who only returned to full training on Friday with Aston Villa, but is going away with Belgium to the USA and Mexico. This is Pau Torres for Villa. Square across the defence for Konsa, and here is Cash now, who was involved in the build-up to the John McGinn goal. Back to Konsa again. West Ham backed by a sold-out away allocation of 3,000 supporters this afternoon directly opposite us, some of them having to shield their eyes as a bit of brightness creeps through. Rodgers has it inside the penalty area, back to Ollie Watkins, great save by Hermansen. Now John McGinn, it just won't sit down for him. Digne rolls it to Barkley, edge of the box, his touch lets him down, he then kicks Souček as he tries to recede the ball, and instead, Tati Castellanos will run away with it down the right-hand side, ploughs a lonely furrow though, and he's looking for an option. In the end, the referee gives him one because he gets his shirt pulled. It'll be a West Ham free kick in front of Nuno Espirito Santo, who almost had his head in his hands.
Well, brilliant chance again from Villa. And that's probably the season that Ollie Watkins has been having. It almost looked like a certain goal for 2-0 for Villa. Brilliant save from Hermansen. The ball just comes across the 6-yard box. It looks certainly he's going to find the far corner with a instep finish from Watkins, but he just finds Hermansen's left boot and it stays out. 25 minutes about to tick over here at Villa Park. The far side of the pitch, probably the far 30-40 yards or so, is now bathed in sunshine. We are under the shade here of the main stand, in front of which Unai Emery and Nuno Espirito Santo both patrol. Fourth official this afternoon, Samuel Barrett on VAR. Stuart Atwell in the middle, Paul Tierney. Ball down the left from Disasi. Too much on it, trying to find Malik Diouf as Disasi returns to the club where he spent the second half of last season on loan from Chelsea. Just a bit too much pep in that one. Yeah, and I think that's just the only thing that's letting West Ham down at the moment. That final pass, that delivery in behind, the consideration on the weight of it. Diouf's got the beating of Matty Cash as he runs in behind. Just really inexcusable to hit that 40 yards on the floor with a side foot pass and overhit it out for a goal kick. but the signs are there that West Ham certainly have the opportunities to try and get themselves back into this goal.
Well, Disasi lets the ball bounce and then it falls awkwardly for Mavropanos. Watkins gets in behind, ball will break to Sancho, now it's with Rodgers, takes a touch, they get enough players back before it's blocked, it falls to McGinn, penalty. Who against at this point, I'm not too sure. Maybe Mavropanos for the tackle against Ollie Watkins, because it appeared to come from the wrong side. But from my vantage point, I thought he got the ball. Luke Chambers, former defender, how did you see it?
It certainly looked like the slide tackle from Mavropanos, as Watkins did brilliantly to get himself almost through on goal. He uses his body brilliantly, holds off Mavropanos, and as he approaches the 18-yard box, steps inside it, gets his foot across. But I think this will be looked at again from a VAR perspective and overturned, because it certainly looked like from here, and I've seen a replay now, Mavropanos, the tackle and the timing of it is absolutely fantastic, and he does get the ball,
magnificent,
and nicks
challenge.
it away from Watkins. But the frustration afterwards, had Sancho just slotted the ball into the bottom corner.
And Paul Tierney has been sent to the screen on the far side to have a look at this, and I know you're still a paying member of the Former Defenders Society, but that was a magnificent challenge. There was a lot of contact just outside the penalty area, but once they had actually got inside the box, it was clinical, it was surgical.
I think if Watkins would have gone down outside the box, there could have been a conversation for a potential red card of the Dogso area, but he gets through. And the thing for me, had Aston Villa been more, forget the tackle, it's brilliant, it's not a penalty from my perspective. But if that ball is then on the second phase by Sancho, just slotted into the bottom corner, it's 2-0 Aston Villa. We're not even having this conversation. But he chooses to roll it across the penalty spot for Rodgers to tap it into an open goal. He chooses to have a touch, cut back on his right foot. The decision then is blocked out by West Ham's players, and then it's called back for the decision to be made. It should be 2-0 without even having that conversation.
Well, here's the verdict from Paul Tierney.
After review, West Ham 15 clearly played the ball. Final decision, football to goalkeeper.
There you go. No penalty. Paul Tierney has seen what we have seen, and he's looked at about 8 different replays. It's the sort of decision that you only need to look at it once in real time, because we all thought it was a good tackle in real time, but certainly you only need to look at one replay to see that that is a brilliant challenge from Dinos Mavropanos, who we've already spoken glowingly about. And Paul Tierney now is hearing it from those travelling 3,000 West Ham supporters. That is where VAR does work and is worth its money, because that would have been a horrible error from the referee to have awarded Ollie Watkins a penalty, and maybe that'll just pick West Ham up now as they look to break down the left side of the penalty area. Pablo trying to get on the end of the ball from Castellanos, and like a few moments ago where Disasi got the ball wrong, he got it wrong there as well. And now here come Villa in the opposite direction. Morgan Rodgers to Ollie Watkins, edge of the penalty area, cutting in on his right foot. He's being forced away by Freddie Potts. Now he needs a little bit of support. Wan-Bissaka and Bowen in front of him. Rolls the ball, tries to get to the byline, needs some support, fakes to cross it, comes back to Rodgers. Bit of space for him, he'll hit this. Bowen closes him down and blocks his England teammate's effort, and it skews out to the far side and behind for a Villa corner, their third of the game.
Brilliant passion for play from both sides, from one end to the next, but again, it's just Morgan Rodgers. He finds himself with a brilliant bit of space and just takes half a second too long on the corner of West Ham's 18-yard box. He tries to get it out of his feet to whip it into that far corner. Just allows Jarrod Bowen to close down the space and get the block off. And lovely bit of play again in the build-up by Ollie Watkins, drawing in 2 or 3 defenders to create the space for Rodgers to take the shot.
Matty Cash, the man to, Luca Digne, this time to go across and take an in-swinging corner kick, as per usual. Crowded 6-yard box. McGinn is loitering just beyond that as it whips into the near post. Barkley to Rodgers, cleared off the line and wide. How's it not 2-0? Villa think they should have a corner kick as well. Magnificently cleared off the line again, and you just at this point assume it's Mavropanos, and I think it is.
It's absolutely incredible, the first half that man is having. Yes, they're 1-0 down, but it could be 3 or 4 without him. The ball is flicked on at the near post from a brilliant delivery from Dean. It's flicked on by McGinn just in front of the front post. Brilliant flick on. It lands to Morgan Rogers inside the centre of the goal, inside the 6-yard box. It's a real good connection from a side foot right volley, and Mavropanos stands up, he doesn't turn around, he makes himself big, and it cannons off his forehead and is cleared away by West Ham.
31 minutes on the clock. Aston Villa 1, West Ham 0. Villa have had a penalty, then overruled by VAR, and 2 or 3 other excellent opportunities that invariably the giant Greek defender Mavropanos has prevented from being a goal. There's some applause down on this near touchline as some of the substitutes go out and warm up. One of those being Leon Bailey now, who scored on Thursday against Lille. That is first goal for Villa in almost a year. On the pitch, meanwhile, Villa wanting to take a quick free kick from the right fullback position, but the referee says to bring that back, and instead Ezri Konsa will come forward and now stands over the ball, dressed in claret and blue with white shorts, here on 5 Sports Extra, on 5 Live. Still 0-0 between Tottenham and Nottingham Forest, as Amadou Onana just dithers on it for a moment inside the centre circle, and Pablo comes across and looks to close him down, but the ball deflects into the path of Barkley, who gives it to Digne and then gets it back again. Here is the former Everton man who's making his 430th career appearance this afternoon, as Matty Cash, who's making his 370th, picks it up on the right wing. Sancho back to Cash again. Polish international, nursing a calf problem of late, will be heading away with Poland, as Ross Barkley, with bright luminous yellow boots, gives it to Pau Torres inside of his own half by maybe 2 or 3 yards. Unai Emery's probably a yard outside of his technical area, and he looks like a master puppeteer at the moment, constantly demonstrating what he wants to do, as Freddie Potts almost robs Barkley of possession in a precarious position, but Villa still have it with Ezri Konsa. And Unai Emery will be pleased with what he's seen so far. His only grumble, I assume, Luke Chambers, is that it's not 2 or 3.
Yeah, and it could easily be that, especially after the last 10 minutes. Villa is certainly away and above so far.
Wonderful 1-2 down the left. Digne's low ball into the feet of Rogers. Sancho leaves it for Onana, who hits it first time, blocked at source. And Cash will not be able to keep it in, but will take a quick throw-in instead. They are pulling the West Ham defenders all over the place at times.
It just seems like that Aston Villa have got an extra man every single time they attack, whether they go down the left, and Luca Digne's causing all sorts of problems, playing high and wide as almost like a left winger. Morgan Rogers is drifting in off this left-hand side in front of us and playing as almost a number 10, so that's where they're struggling to really stop Villa.
McGinn does brilliantly to control the ball, turns and finds Watkins. Watkins hits it, and it deflects, I think, just wide. It does. Corner kick. Ollie Watkins shakes his head, slumps his shoulders, gets a high five off of Jadon Sancho, but must be thinking, what have I got to do to get a goal?
I just think it's the connection. He takes himself, it's 1v1 against Mavropanos, who again gets a brilliant block off his left calf on the edge of the 18-yard box, but it's just that intention from Ollie Watkins. We've been used to seeing him get it out of his feet and drilling it into the far corner. He just almost snatches at it a little bit, so it's not the cleanest and truest of strikes, which probably allows Mavropanos to get that block on it.
Watkins has 9 goals in all competitions for the season, including one at Lille 10 days ago, but that's just 1 in 10, and he's not scored in the Premier League since January. Here comes the in-swinging corner kick, headed away by Souček, out as far as Castellanos, and now into the feet of Fernandez, as a fly almost goes in my mouth. McGinn turns it out to this left-hand side for Cash, right-footed, curling ball too close to the goalkeeper, and an easy claim for Hermansen. 10 minutes to go here in the first half. Villa leading as they have been since the 15th minute. They've also had a penalty that was initially awarded, but then ruled out by VAR. Stuart Atwell at Stockley Park this afternoon. As Diouf gives it to Fernandez. Onana makes the challenge, 10 yards outside of the Villa penalty area, now under grey marble skies here in the West Midlands. Wan-Bissaka, short sleeves and black gloves. That's a look. I grant him, it's an awkward sort of day. You don't know what to wear. You've come with 2 coats. I've come with a cardigan and a coat, and I've worn both, and then I've interchanged it, and now I'm back to the cardigan.
Let's get it right.
Again.
It's not gloves weather.
But it's not short sleeves and gloves, is it? Jared Bowen picks up a pocket of space, edge of the penalty area, hits it with his left foot, deflected behind. It'll be a corner kick and a first of the afternoon for West Ham.
Yeah, good bit of play. First time we've really seen Jarrod Bowen in any sort of attacking area on the ball, and he finds himself a real lovely pocket just outside the D of Aston Villa's penalty area. Got time, gets turned, but fortunately for them, Pau Torres comes out, confronts him. It's not the greatest of strikes, it just comes from nothing really in terms of getting a corner, but what a chance now. And who would be surprised if that man Mavropanos doesn't find himself at the end of it?
At this rate, he could run for the Mayor of London if he were to get a goal here, as well as all his heroics at the other end. Bowen, left-footed, strokes it into the penalty area, and that is composure personified from Emi Martinez, who claims it without even going onto his tippy toes, in amongst all those tall trees, and then never composed for long as he gives one of the players a shove with his elbows.
Well, I think the frustration there, he caught it brilliantly and then runs to the edge of the 18-yard box to get a quick break, because Villa had 3v2 on the halfway line. But credit to West Ham, they stopped him getting any sort of space to release that ball.
Mavropanos' powerful header put everything behind that as he found Pablo on the right wing, goes down under the challenge of Rodgers, who looks as flabbergasted now as Digne was earlier on, and you can never be too sure whether or not there's some play acting involved in that. No, he does catch him, so there's a lot of play acting involved in that. Not the best of tackles in the world from the England international, who hasn't scored for 8 games, 23 years old, from West Brom's academy initially. Morgan Rodgers, well travelled in the Football League, which has only served him well. Speaking of West Brom, the manager of their arch rivals, Wolves boss Rob Edwards, is here watching this afternoon as Fernandez plays a long ball, brilliant ball, falls to Souček, controlled on the chest initially by Disasi, all of it for naught because the assistant's flag away to our right hand side has gone up, and it'll be a Villa free kick. And the applause you can hear is for 2 things. First of all, Youri Tielemans has gone to warm up for the first time. He's not been in the matchday squad since the end of January with an ankle injury. But also there was a roar because Villa were breaking down the right wing. Onana now has it near the centre circle, 20 yards maybe inside of West Ham territory. Back to Pau Torres. Morgan Rodgers with the ball at his feet, and back to Torres again. Unai Emery saying in his press conference that he only returned Tielemans to training on Friday, so may get some minutes on Sunday, may not, really didn't specify. And then later in the press conference was asked about it again, and then kind of let it slip that he will get a few minutes today before he heads off on international duty with Belgium. Aston Villa and everybody involved and associated with the football club will hope that he is thoroughly wrapped in cotton wool while he's on his international travels. They will need him for the remainder of this run-in. John McGinn, 15 yards outside of the West Ham penalty area, over to Sancho now, tries to dance his way past Diouf, forced out to the far side. He's facing those West Ham supporters and wins a Aston Villa throw-in. We have played 38 minutes, it's still 1-0 here to the home team as Ezri Konsa has it once more, exchanges a couple of passes with Ross Barkley and to Pau Torres. Bit of space for him now, out to this left hand side. Luca Digne, 3 Premier League wins from 11 games in 2026 for Aston Villa, and just 1 in their last 5 here at Villa Park. They are hoping to put all of that behind them as Torres tries to find Rodgers. He slipped as he attempted to stop, and the ball breaks. Pablo picks it up off of Souček, and Castellanos will get away down the right wing. Flag stays down for now. Here comes the Argentine striker, tries to roll it back into the path of Pablo. Now the flag goes up for offside, which probably only spares the blushes of Tati Castellanos, because I assume you, like I, Luke Chambers, was thinking, why didn't he just hit that?
Well, I think it's the initial turnover. Cosra does brilliantly. He holds himself on the halfway line as Castellanos finds himself a half a yard offside. You're thinking the flag's going to go up, but he gets away. The flag stays down. He's running in on goal towards the near post, and he just decides to try and roll it into Pablo's path across the penalty spot, and it's just overhit and absolutely miles away from the path of him. And then the flag goes up to the frustration of Villa Park.
I wonder whether or not it's a confidence matter there for Castellanos. 1 goal in his last 7 games, 3 goals since he signed for 26 million from Lazio in January, not been included in the Argentina squad as well. And it goes back to kind of what we were talking about Jadon Sancho earlier as well, when Sancho had the opportunity in the build-up to the penalty to have a crack at it, but himself passing that up as well. Only started 7 times for Villa in the Premier League this season, so not exactly bristling with confidence since he joined on loan from Manchester United. Of course, couldn't play last week in that 3-1 defeat against United, still his parent club. As Barkley has it in the left full-back position, goes back to Martinez in a lemon yellow goalkeeping kit this afternoon. Matty Cash on the right-hand side to Onana, square to Pau Torres. Less than 4 minutes remain at the end of this first half that Villa have led since the 15th minute through John McGinn. Could have been 2, could have been 3, maybe should have been. And as Cash has it again on the right wing, now inside of the West Ham half. Here is Sancho with those sky blue socks pulled up high. Onana has ripped a couple of holes in the back of his. Were you a sock ripper in your playing days?
Still can't get my head around it, to be honest. It's something that they feel they need to do to release maybe the pressure on their calves, but I'm not sure.
I don't have calf muscles like that, so I've never found it to be too much of an issue. But I've also not worn a pair of football socks for about 18-20 years or so. Maybe they make them thinner nowadays, I don't know. Konsa has it, edge of the centre circle, couple of passes with Barkley. Konsa at fault for one of the goals back in December when these two met. Villa winning by 3-2. Morgan Rogers with 2 second-half goals, granting them all 3 points, and that was, I think, Villa's 9th win in a row in all competitions. They look good value for their lead here this afternoon. Sancho dances away from Fernandes, and Fernandes falls over. He makes him dance away once more, and now it's with Onana and back to Sancho again. Diouf is in front of him, little ball inside to Matty Cash instead, shuffles it onto his left foot. First time cross as he slips, is headed away by Souček. And Konsa and Torres have it once more at the back for Villa, but every single player barring Martinez is inside that West Ham half as they try to get a second here in the final couple of minutes of the first half. John McGinn, the goal scorer, 2-2 for him, having scored against Lille. Slots it down the left side for Digne, has loads of time to pick out his cross and doesn't do it all that well. It bounces rather lamely into the midriff of Diouf, who chests it back to Hermansen.
Yeah, very difficult from Luca Dean's perspective. He gets himself in a brilliant position. His movement with John McGinn and Morgan Rogers down this near left-hand side has been brilliant. He's found himself in space time and again, and he only had Ollie Watkins to hit on that occasion. Villa have done really well committing bodies forward into West Ham's penalty area, but I feel the time is now, what are we, 43 minutes in, maybe a little bit of consideration as we approach half-time, and to keep that lead at 1-0.
Obviously all our focus is going into watching this game and bringing it to you on 5 Sports Extra. I've just got in front of me the score and the time constantly ticking away at North London on a phone in front of me, and it's still 0-0 between Tottenham and Nottingham Forest. And just from looking at the score, I know that's a tense old affair. You can listen to it on BBC Radio 5 Live. Jonathan Pearson, Paul Robinson are there. As Rogers does brilliantly, gets away from Wan-Bissaka, who's trying to pull him down with everything he's got, but he can't. Eventually it might be a free kick. No, the referee says advantage has been played. It's allowed Wan-Bissaka to get back in front again and eventually make the tackle, but it was one of the most cynical dragbacks that was elongated for so long, and yet the referee never called it. He is, however, going to, I think, retrospectively book Wan-Bissaka for all of that tomfoolery.
Yeah, it was certainly absolutely trying everything with every fibre to drag Morgan Rogers down as he got himself the wrong side of Wan-Bissaka, who was driving away towards West Ham's penalty area. And he did brilliantly to stay on his feet. He then decides to chop it off his left foot, and it almost looked like the second tackle was a foul as well. But having seen the replay, Wan-Bissaka just about gets enough on it inside that D of the penalty area, and West Ham regain possession.
First player this afternoon to go into Paul Tierney's notebook. It was like a poor attempt at a rugby tackle. You remember when you were forced to play rugby at school as a kid and you were like, I really don't fancy this? It was one of those moments right out of my top drawer when I was 13. Sancho gives it back to Rogers, edge of the penalty area, back to Sancho again, cuts it, looking for McGinn, looking for Rogers, couldn't find either of them. Recovering clearance though, I think, from Potts, puts it behind for another Aston Villa corner kick as 3 minutes of additional time go up on the big screens here at Villa Park, and it's a 5th corner of this first half, which only indicates the, I suppose, somewhat dominance that Villa have. Well worthy of a 1-goal scoreline. 2 or maybe even 3 might not flatter them. 3 maybe a touch, but 3 minutes of additional time here. We'll link you up with BBC Radio 5 live at half-time, where they will continue to reflect on not just this game, but Tottenham against Forest as well, and build up to the League Cup final, which is still to come with commentary at 4:30. Digne, left-footed, swinging ball. Watkins there. Konsa too. Comes off Konsa in the end, who glances it down into the turf. He's only about 4 yards out, and it bounces up in the air again and loops up onto the roof of the net. And Dinos Mavropanos is down for West Ham. The last thing they need is him injured.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with him. I think it's the initial challenge. I'm not sure whether there's a clash of heads between Rodgers and maybe Konsa on the back of his head as he comes in. I think it's maybe a forearm from Watkins as they both go up to challenge it, but thankfully for West Ham he's back on his feet. But an absolutely enormous chance, I think it's between Konsa and Watkins, to get a free header 4 yards from goal on target. They head it down into the turf and it bounces over the crossbar. It's another chance for Villa that goes begging, and you start to think, how many of these can you miss before it goes into half-time?
Nottingham Forest have scored in North London. Tottenham 0, Forest 1. The goal has just gone in, so on my little app I don't even know who scored the goal yet, but late at the end of the first half, and just pointing out to me now, it is Igor Jesus who has popped up for Forest with an all-important goal. And what will that do to the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Igor Tudor, I wouldn't want to be inside your head right now. Is that a corner kick for West Ham? It is, in stoppage time here.
Imagine West Ham get an equaliser now.
Indeed. How quickly things can spin and swivel at the bottom of the Premier League. As things stand, Nottingham Forest will go out of the relegation zone and up to 16th, with Tottenham dropping to 17th on 30 points, 2 points behind Forest. And as things stand, West Ham remain 18th and in the relegation zone by a point. Here comes the left-footed in-swinger. Doesn't even beat the man at the near post. Luca Dean clears it away. The recovering challenge puts an end to any thoughts of a Aston Villa counter-attack, and then Onana and Wan-Bissaka collide like two great big battleships, and it results in a West Ham throw-in down the right wing inside Villa territory by around 20 yards or so. The 3 minutes of additional time are up, so if West Ham do want to try and find an equaliser here, they need to get a shimmy on. They won't be able to. The referee puts his whistle to his lips, draws what has been an entertaining first half of football here at Villa Park to a close. Aston Villa leading against West Ham by 1-0. John McGinn with a curling left-footed effort which found the bottom corner of the net from a brilliantly worked set piece. They've also had a penalty that was initially awarded on field but then overruled by VAR, and Luke Chambers a slew of other excellent chances to increase their lead.
Yeah, massive first half of football from Aston Villa, especially having lost their last 3 in a row. It's a real positive performance from them. It could easily be 2-3, maybe 4-0 up with the chances that they've had, and maybe made the wrong decisions at the wrong time. But listen, West Ham have got a lot of work to do. A lot of questions need to be answered in that dressing room. They started relatively brightly, but it's been all Aston Villa for the rest of this first half.
Does word of the score in North London creep in at this point, do you think, into that changing room at half-time?
No, I think they'll be doing absolutely everything they can to stop it, but there will be a couple of individuals that will start to feel that pressure, maybe in the staff, maybe players that aren't in the squad that may mention it to one or two of the substitutes, and then that can then spread like wildfire through the dressing room. But I think they'll be doing everything they can to just focus on what can be controlled in that dressing room.
Do you know, I think they're deep into first half stoppage time in North London, so I know there'll be a lot of interested listeners tuning into us today on Sports Extra who will want to know what's happening there as well. So let's link you up in North London with Jonathan Pearce and Paul Robinson. I think the half-time whistle has just gone. Steve Crossman and the team at Wembley as well. We'll be back for the second half here, but for the time being, from Villa Park It is Aston Villa 1, West Ham 0.
Every statistic, they've dominated in every single aspect of the game without putting the finishing touches to it. A really good opportunity there for Mateus Tell at the end. Matt Sells produces a wonder save, but then they've just been hit by a sucker punch. Everything that they didn't want, the performance is everything they wanted, but the half-time scoreline is everything they didn't want.
And Crossy, here's another chilling fact for you. If they lose this, it will be 44 points out of a possible 165.
Wow. Paul, now what a massive challenge to get that stadium at the start of the second half to sound like it did at the start of the first half.
Well, do you know what? I thought that, but when the goal went in, Tottenham went right down the other end and picked up from where they'd left off before the Nottingham Forest set play. And actually, does that relieve a little bit of pressure? Maybe I'm being a little bit optimistic, but does that take the pressure off protecting a clean sheet, if you like? They've now got nothing to lose. They can go out, they can play open, they can play expansive. The crowd can get behind them, and they do get that goal back, and then they'll be in the ascendancy to go and get another one. Listen, it's not ideal going a goal down. It's certainly not what you would want. But from a Tottenham point of view is now they've got nothing to lose in this second half. They've got to go for it. They've played well. I mean, it's been frantic. Like I said, there's been no real quality in it. It's been two teams that have battled extremely hard. And Tottenham, you can see the application, what they've put in, without the end product.
Paul, Jonathan, thank you for the time being. So Nottingham Forest leading at Tottenham Hotspur. That would take them up to 32 points and 16th position. They would move ahead of Spurs. And if West Ham could get a win at Aston Villa, Spurs would end the day in the relegation zone. But a lot would have to change for that, Chris Coles.
Would have to change, Steve, because West Ham have offered precious little this afternoon. They trail at Villa Park 1-0. Again, Villa have dominated. They should have a far greater advantage. The goal they did score was nicely crafted from a set piece. Cash to McGinn via Sancho across the edge of the box. McGinn curling into the far corner. That was arguably the hardest opportunity to take. Watkins twice from close range. A Rodgers header cleared off the line, and a penalty given on field by Paul Tierney for a Mavropanos challenge on Watkins, but swiftly sent to the screen to overturn his decision, with Mavropanos clearly winning the ball. West Ham have spent most of the half defending, and as such have offered next to nothing going forward. Aston Villa 1, West Ham 0.
Don't forget, earlier in the Premier League, massive result for Sunderland, winning 2-1 at Newcastle in the derby. They've done the double over them. They move up to 11th in the Premier League. Newcastle drop to 12th. And Dundee United, what a story that was earlier today as well, and what an amazing title race it looks like we're getting, well, we already have got in Scotland this season. So, because of the fact that Dundee United beat Celtic today, Celtic are now on 61 points in third, Rangers 63 in second, Hearts lead the way on 66. Right, we're live at Wembley for the League Cup final at 4:30. We'll have the second halves from our two Premier League commentaries before that, but we will continue the build-up here after the latest news.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Thank you, Chris. And with the latest news on BBC Radio 5 Live, this is James Wickham. The government says it has no plans to introduce a cap on the profits of energy companies. The Prime Minister's own cost of living advisor, Lord Walker, suggested the measure in order to stop firms exploiting the crisis in Iran to make money. The regulator, Ofgem, is currently assessing the level of the next energy price cap. The Shadow Communities Secretary, Sir James Cleverly, dismissed the idea of a profits cap and called for ministers to bring down bills instead.
A huge chunk of their bills are because of taxes, particularly green levies. We are advocating a reducing of the amount of money that the government adds to those bills. Let's start off with that. Let's also make sure we are better utilising our own oil and gas capability so that we are not reliant so heavily on imported energy sources.
Iran's threatened to irreversibly destroy US-linked energy sites in the Middle East in response to President Trump's 48-hour deadline to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The president said the US would target Iranian power plants if the shipping route isn't fully restored. Tehran's continuing an assault on Israel after missiles broke through the air defences last night and this morning. More than a dozen people have been injured in Tel Aviv. Dr. Sanam Vakil is director of the Middle East and North Africa programme at Chatham House.
2 days ago, Donald Trump said the U.S. would like to wind things down, but we have to look at the reality on the ground. More troops are going into the Middle East from the United States. The messaging signals that Iran is also retaliating, having also hit Israel in a serious way. This war isn't ending anytime soon, and the price is going to be paid by civilians everywhere.
And a police officer from Kent who was involved in a car crash when responding to an emergency call last week has died. The force said PC Bradley Cork, who was 27, died trying to save the lives of others who were in danger. A second officer who was injured in the incident in Farningham on Thursday remains critically ill.
On BBC iPlayer.
The question has become more urgent. How do we sort fact from fiction?
How can we believe what we see?
The hit drama returns.
That is not the shooter I saw. Why am I the only one who saw the suspect?
You think this is correction?
Yes, sir. The news footage has been deep-faked.
Do you trust her judgment? I don't trust, period. The new series of The Capture. Famously unreliable things, memories.
You can't hack a memory.
Stranger things have happened. Watch on BBC iPlayer.
This is 5 Live Sports with Steve Crossman.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
OK, second half commentary of Tottenham 0, Nottingham Forest 1 to come on 5 Live. On 5 Sports Extra, Villa leading West Ham by 1-0. That's where you'll get the second half commentary. Already today it finished Newcastle 1, Sunderland 2. Reaction on the way to that very shortly. We are live from Wembley Stadium and I am pitchside with former Arsenal and England man Matt Upson. Good afternoon.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Excellent.
I suspect neither of us are as good as the young man who is walking right towards us now, Max Dowman, who has his headphones on. He's about 5 metres away from us. He's just posing for a couple of photographs, actually. And he's had, I mean, look, just above us, that big spider cam is focused in on him. He is 16.
Yeah.
What on earth he must be thinking right now and how he's able to deal with this, I just don't know.
Well, that for me is my biggest fear about him.
Yep.
The fear about him is nothing to do with football. It's about what's going to come now after being a sensation at that age. We look through history and we can see how difficult it can be for young sports stars in any sport that achieve and break through in that manner at that age is incredibly tough. And I think just small steps, take a step back sometimes and just breathe. You know, he's going to be a sensational player, but just give it time. You know what I mean? Let's not kind of clamber all over it too early.
We've also got Joe Hart with us, who's on Match of the Day later. Afternoon, Joe.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Do you sort of share that I'm hearing, Joe, from a lot of ex-players, that people want to get excited about him because he is exciting, and yet at the same time you really have to think about what is best for him right now at that age?
Oh, yeah, I suppose, but just thinking about it, you said obviously the spider cams follow him into the stadium and everyone's talking about him. That's normal for him. He's been a superstar probably since he's laced up the boots, and wherever he's been the main attraction, and that's not changed. That's not saying that it's he's going to be okay with it. But just from his point of view, I think it would be strange for it not to be that way. He's such a good player. He's so composed. I watched him score that goal at Everton. There was no emotion when he scored. He expected to score the goal. It was only when he realised how much it affected the stadium that he actually started living in that moment. But you're right, I agree with you, Matt. He needs good people around him. I think Mikel Arteta really wants to protect him, wants to look after him. I think Arsenal want to look after him. So, look, let's just let the boy flourish. He looks a really exciting talent, and I'm really excited to see where he's going to take his career.
As far as today goes, Matt, that we always talk about the fearlessness of youth, which is certainly on his side if he's involved.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see when the teams come out. It's going to be quite interesting, both sides, isn't it, as to what the starting 11 is. But
well, we haven't seen a Barrechi, have we?
No, which is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, so there's we'll have to wait and see. But I think in regards to Dowman, I just think he's at the level. So already to be that good, and I don't just mean in terms of technically, I think his timing is the way he sees the game, the way he lures the ball. He's creating time around himself all the time. So I think him to come on is the ideal player in any situation, certainly for Arsenal. And it's come right on cue. I think that the timing of the season, Arsenal probably hitting a little bit of a slump around that Everton time. It was such a massive game for them, and to have that impact of a young academy player at that point was just perfect. So, I'd love to see him feature today at some point, and what an experience it will be here. I mean, it's just what a fantastic final it could be.
What a final, Joe. Exactly. There is just so much about it which is so exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait. The two top teams in the Premier League fighting out. I think that's a bit of a rarity when it comes to this competition, especially. but there's so much on it. I think obviously Arsenal had a really good weekend last weekend with City slipping up to an extent, but statements can be made today. I think Arsenal have been so consistent all season in being able to grind out results, and City haven't been as consistent. I think that stands with their league position and going out of the Champions League, but we all know if they can click into gear, they can cause them a lot of problems today.
Let's talk goalkeepers then, Joe. Obviously the big story that we were waiting for is whether or not it would be James Trafford or Gianluigi Donnarumma. In fact, I've just seen, speaking of goalkeepers, just seen Jens Lehmann walking down the stairs in front of us, former Arsenal great, of course. Do you think that's the right call? Trafford's been the cup goalkeeper, so he plays in the cup final?
Yeah, of course. Why not? I think that's what he was signed when he signed, and they decided on Donnarumma. It was the only thing that could happen. If you want harmony in the squad, you want to have that little bit of trust that's going to be there. I think Trafford's been excellent every time he's played. I think he was player of the round in the semi-final over the two legs as well. So yeah, I don't think it really affects Man City. You know, both dominant keepers. Obviously, ideally, you'd want to have played a few more games going into it, but it's a great opportunity for him, and he's still got a real opportunity to play a huge part in 2 of the cups for Man City this season.
I suppose the other thing, Matt, is it's a massive show of faith, that, because if you were James Trafford, you could be forgiven for thinking, what does my manager think about me at the minute, because he brought Donnarumma and he's behind Donnarumma. He didn't have to pick him for this game. It is a massive game, not just for the cup final, but because of what impact it could have on the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So that'll be a big deal for him.
It will, and I think Joe's hit the nail on the head in the sense of the harmony and the mood, and the players pick up on if you feel a player's not been treated quite, respectfully or properly. I think that really is one of the most damaging things in the dressing room, to be honest. So I think managers have to be acutely aware of that, and I'm sure both Pep and Mikel Arteta really are. And he's done, when I see him, he's done well enough, and he obviously came back to the club hoping to play more. Donnarumma came in late. So, to have this run of games in this cup, to me, it just feels only right that he gets the jersey and the opportunity to play today.
Joe, what about that finish at St James's Park?
Absolutely wild. It was wild, and you know what, Sunderland fully deserved it. Obviously they started slowly, Newcastle capitalised on it, but Robbie was brilliant today. I think Danny's going to do a piece on it later.
Welcome back to Villa Park, where the Villa team have just made their way back out onto the pitch, still waiting for the re-arrival of the West Ham players. Nuno Espirito Santo certainly will have quite a lot to say as Jarrod Bowen now leads his players back out onto the pitch. I don't think there might be one change here, as I've just spotted the inimitable physique of Adama Traore at the back, and also Callum Wilson. So Nuno not happy with what he's seen in that first. Luke Chambers, former Forest and Ipswich defender, alongside me. A double change at half-time can only suggest his displeasure anyway.
Absolutely, and I think you saw his really defeated figure walk down in front of us towards the tunnel after the half-time whistle, and he's made his feelings known by his selection, and Callum Wilson comes on. Traore's coming on, so it certainly added some real attacking impetus to this side, which probably they didn't have in that first half. Castellanos, I think, has made way, and is also potentially Freddie Potts as well, who suffered.
Tough that for Freddie Potts, isn't it? Young man, hadn't played since when he was sent off at Burton in the FA Cup last month, and then with about 15 minutes of notice he comes in, then gets hooked at half-time. Adama Traore replaces him, and just to confirm that as well, Castellanos is the other player who's been given an early rest, and Callum Wilson will come on. And there's been a long running debate in the West Ham fan base as to why Wilson isn't getting more game time over Castellanos, who's not exactly demanding the shirt. Villa gets back underway. They lead here under grey skies, quite chilly now. It's just a hint of winter still in the air, and Villa have it inside their own penalty area, and there will have to be more urgency to this West Ham performance. Villa have Martinez in goal, back four of Cash, Konsa, Torres and Digne. In midfield it's Onana and Barkley, with Rodgers and McGinn along with Sancho getting in support of Ollie Watkins. From a West Ham perspective now, they continue with a back four in front of Mads Manson, Wan-Bissaka the right fullback and Diouf the left fullback. Mavropanos, who was quite brilliant in that first half, and Disasi are the two centre-halves as Mavropanos has to come across and sweep up in behind Disasi, who'd gone walkabout and not got the ball. That's a wonderful touch from Diouf on this left-hand side. What a touch that is. It's probably not going to make any highlight package whatsoever, but boy, it should, Luke Chambers.
I was going to say it was prime Luke Chambers there, plucking out the sky, but absolutely not. Brilliant bit of play, and West Ham look like they've started with a 4-4-2 formation. Callum Wilson up front alongside Pablo, and Bowen on the right and Traore on the left.
And John McGinn has it quickly for Aston Villa, now attacking the Holt end in this second half. Cash, ball into the edge of the 6-yard box. Watkins can't connect. It deflects out to Digne, who hits it, blocked by Aaron Wan-Bissaka in a particularly painful area. And all over Villa Park, lots of people, some of the men, complain that Wan-Bissaka's gone down and hasn't gone back up again. I ask all of the men around this stadium we've all experienced that hit him on the inside left of his inner right thigh, and I think he's allowed a few moments.
Absolutely no sympathy in football. Aston Villa fans and players baying for blood, and they were on a real positive attack. And just before that, a real brilliant bit of play down the right-hand side. Matty Cash again gets away free, delivers a really good ball along the 6-yard box. It's clear to Luca Dean, who ultimately has the shot in the end. Wan-Bissaka blocks, but he took an age to get it off. The time and opportunity that Aston Villa have had this afternoon, that's happened on 3 or 4 occasions now, where they've had a real good bit of time to really get a shot off, and the chance has gone begging because they've delayed that and the first touch hasn't quite been right. So you'd like to think that they improve that intention moving forward in this second half.
All been a bit of a frantic start to this second half, so we'll just continue to go through that West Ham team for you, with Traore on the left-hand side, Bowen on the right, in midfield Fernandes and Souček, and yes, Wilson and Pablo up front. Villa have it. Rodgers' cross almost turned into a shot. He's trying to find Sancho at the back post, whipped away from him and went behind for a goal kick. So Villa in claret and blue as the two teams, well known for their claret and blue, go head-to-head in the West Midlands on this Sunday afternoon. White shorts with the claret and blue shirts and sky blue socks. West Ham in cream, or you could call it off-white jerseys with dark navy blue shorts and socks. Mads Hermansen, who's dressed in bright Dutch orange, clears it away. Long looking for Wilson, tries to bring it down. Ross Barkley gets there first instead for Aston Villa. Villa, who have led since the 15th minute, when John McGinn found the bottom corner of the net from around 20 yards with a wonderful curling left-footed effort. We've played nearly 4 minutes of this second half, and if you are just joining us, they also had a penalty initially awarded on the pitch but then ruled out by VAR, and they're just about back underway, albeit maybe 2 or 3 minutes behind us in North London, where it's Tottenham 0, Nottingham Forest 1. Such an important day down near the bottom of the Premier League table. Here is Sancho as Villa try to get back to winning ways in the Premier League. The only thing they've had to smile about of late is their European antics, with a couple of wins against Lille amounting to a 3-0 aggregate margin, which sets up a tie against Bologna in the Europa League quarter-finals. But they've lost 3 Premier League games in a row, not lost 4 on the spin since 2022, and Barkley picks it up and fires a rocket, which is palmed behind by Mads Hermansen. It's West Ham who have all the reason for urgency, because they are the team that find themselves in the bottom 3, but it's Villa who are showing no sympathy, no empathy for that whatsoever. They're trying to get a second and put this game out of sight.
Yeah, and Ross Barkley was sloppy bit of play from him initially. He rolled it into Rodgers, but it was a short pass where Fernandes sort of collapsed on the ball, and then he was able to pick up the second ball, and it's happened 2 or 3 times so far in the first half. He's had time, and the whole of Villa Park has urged him to shoot. This time he does from about 25 yards and absolutely fires a rocket that looks like it's going to go in off the underside of the bar, but Hermansen manages to push it over, and it's now an Aston Villa corner.
5 gone in this second half. Villa leading by a goal to 0. Digne with his right hand in the air, about to cross the ball with his left foot. looking deep towards the back post, headed away by Mavropanos, only as far as Cash. Cash hits it with the right foot, cuts across it, so it swerves from left to right and goes behind into the hole 10 for a goal kick. And they are not in a hurry to give Mads Hermansson the ball back. Every time it goes to a fan, they say, I'll throw it back to you, and then they throw it behind them instead. So eventually Hermansson goes and picks up an extra ball off of a cone, and you would bet that as soon as they try to get this going again, that ball's coming back onto the pitch.
Yeah, there's definitely a word for that behaviour in sort of football circles. But yeah, again, another chance for Villa. Matty Cash playing with a lot of confidence, has been really, really good this afternoon, and drops to his half volley. And like you say, the technique he has to cut across it, just too much height on it over the bar.
Long ball forwards from West Ham, giving Wilson something to chase, but Konsa does brilliantly. First of all, to shrug Wilson off, and then with the composure to poke it to a teammate. And Villa are away with Morgan Rogers looking for Jadon Sancho, who sprints past Juve, gets to the byline, and his cross goes into the gloves of Hermansson. The whole 10 want a corner kick. They're not going to get one. If you're being ultra picky, Luke Chambers, I would suggest Jadon Sancho's touch there lets him down a little bit, takes him a bit too far to the byline.
Yeah, he had the pace and beating of Diouf out of absolutely nowhere. Diouf almost gave up as he approached the outside of the 6-yard box in front of the hole end, and just the touch was too far. He couldn't then get his right foot round it to whip it back and cut it back for his teammate, and it lands into Hermansson's hand.
Here is Diouf, the man with the magic touch a few moments ago, left-footed, swinging ball to that 6-yard box. Pau Torres stoops low, heads it behind, and you can hear a roar there, that roar coming from the West Ham supporters opposite us. 3,000 of them are stacked up in 2 tiers. It's a throw-in right next to the corner flag away to our left-hand side, and Dinos Mavropanos will come across and take a long throw-in. He's the sort of player that you really want in the middle. He will take this throw-in. He's had his head on absolutely everything at the other end, and of course scored an equaliser against Manchester City a week ago in their 1-1 draw. Here comes that long throw from the Greek defender. Wilson controls it, lays it off to Fernandes, takes a touch onto his left foot. Nice inviting ball to the back post where Pablo was lurking, and a very important header behind from Luca Dean. It'll be a West Ham corner.
Do not underestimate the quality of that defending from Luca Dean and how he covers the back post. It looks like it could potentially be offside from Pablo, but the way Luca Dean recovers himself, just flying towards his back post, and flying header and
corner kick taken quickly, comes to Fernandes, hits it, shouts for handball from the West Ham fans, but not from the players, and instead it'll be a throw-in, probably 14 yards up the touchline from the corner flag away to our left as West Ham attack from right to left, and Mavropanos goes across. Here's his name chanted by those West Ham supporters. One of them gets a Greek flag out, which is almost directly behind him now, as another long throw is launched into the penalty area. Powerful header away by Onana, comes back to Mavropanos. You're asking now for a bit of quality with his foot, and he gives it to Sassi, climbs high and heads down into the gloves of Emi Martinez.
Yeah, again, they try and get an early break from Martinez. He's having a shout at Matty Cash. They're shouting at each other. A little bit of frustration creeping in for Aston Villa, but that's the response that West Ham are going to need in the second half. A real big chance, lovely considered half volley, right-footed cross from Mavropanos, having got the ball back from the long throw.
54 gone on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra. Villa leading by a goal to nil on BBC Radio 5 Live. It remains Tottenham 0, Nottingham Forest 1, and as things stand at the foot of the Premier League table, West Ham, after 31 games, will remain in the relegation zone on 29 points. Spurs will be just outside with 1 point of breathing space, 30 points, and Nottingham Forest will move 3 points clear on 32 points. Long way to go though. You'll hear it all on 5 Live. Ollie Watkins tries to hit one, but again kind of scoffs at his shot from the edge of the box. Onana has it now, right-footed, caresses the ball to Digne, left side of the penalty area, fakes to cross it a couple of times, eventually does, it's blocked. Now to Ross Barkley, his touch lets him down. West Ham will try to clear it, but Villa have it again, and the pressure when they do have the ball like this is smothering. John McGinn's cross is blocked by Wan-Bissaka. Wan-Bissaka, who was booked in the first half, goes out for an Aston Villa throw 12 yards up the touchline from the far corner flag.
Yeah, I think every time Aston Villa get the ball in the attacking third, there's 4 or 5 claret and blue shirts inside West Ham's 18-yard box, and it's certainly causing them problems. If they can just miss that first man with the delivery, it's going to really create some more chances for Villa.
We've covered the picture at the bottom of the Premier League table. At the top, 3 points for Aston Villa today would take them just a point behind Manchester United in third. United on 55 points, Villa on 54 points were they to hang on to a victory. They have been good value for their 1-goal scoreline so far today. The only complaint Unai Emery will have is that it's not a wider margin. The international break to come after today as Matty Cash launches himself along the ground to ensure that the ball doesn't go out for what would have been a West Ham throw. And now it's at the feet of Jadon Sancho. John McGinn, 10 yards inside of the West Ham half, gives it to Onana. He's so composed. What an athlete he is as well, as he strides away from Callum Wilson. Esri Konsa has the ball inside the centre circle. Yuri Tielemans and Tammy Abraham are warming up in front of us on the near touchline at half-time. The League Cup winning team of 30 years ago this weekend for Aston Villa were paraded on the pitch, trying to get a bit of the magic off of that winning side to rub up on this one now as they chase a top 4 place and possibly a first trophy since. You wouldn't bet against Unai Emery in the Europa League, would you? Here's Morgan Rogers, 20 yards inside of West Ham territory. Onana gets it, gives it to Watkins, back to goal, edge of the penalty area, goes down, Disasi shrugs him off and passes forwards through the lines to Callum Wilson. By more luck than anything else, Pablo controls it and keeps going. It's a 4-on-3. Bowen to the right-hand side, Wilson and Adama Traore in the middle. Bowen has a go at goal, it's deflected behind, it's a corner kick. It's a brilliant game.
It is, and you see the Aston Villa players, Onana, Matty Cash, sort of shouting at Ollie Watkins, who lost the ball on the edge of West Ham's penalty area, and it felt like it was probably potentially a foul. Disasi drags him away, but credit to West Ham, they broke in so many numbers and so many pace, and we've seen so many times Jarrod Bowen picks it up on the inside right, tries to cut back on his left foot, but it's cleared away with his head from Esri Konsa.
Nuno Espirito Santo said in the week that they've reached a moment in the season where everything is pivotal. This could be a pivotal half an hour or so in the West Ham season as Souček keeps the play alive from a long dropping ball to the back post from that corner. Hits another header there as well as now Diouf nods it into the box. Player goes down, falls to Bowen, hits it wide. Assistance flags up anyway. Never looked all that comfortable, all the head tennis back and forth on the edge of the penalty area, and it'll be a free kick in an area not too dissimilar to a goal kick.
But credit to West Ham, they kept the ball alive. A real long raking corner from Bowen right the way to the back post. Souček keeps it alive on a couple of occasions and it drops then. It's flicked to the back post. It looked like Bowen gets in and he slashes at it with his right foot, but brought back for an offside. I think it's Callum Wilson who just used his body in an offside position to try and create the space for Jarrod Bowen.
Ross Barkley picks up not just a pocket of space, he picks up acres of it now, and he surges 40 yards with the ball into West Ham territory, gives it to Sancho, right side of the area. McGinn fakes to hit it, leaves it for Onana, who tried to gently caress the ball past the goalkeeper. When he took his sandwich, he might have needed a driver there and just force it past Hermansen. It goes behind into the Holt end. Yeah. Still 1-0 to Villa approaching the hour.
I think he tried to strike it in the way John McGinn did with the first goal, but I think he's just running too straight onto it. He almost wants to try and lace that one to try and cause Hermansen any problems. But real bright break again from Aston Villa. They're really sensing that when West Ham do attack, they're leaving opportunity and space to play right through the middle of them with their 4-4-2 formation, and they're making the most of that at the moment.
Watkins keeps the play alive on the halfway line, loses his footing as he does so. Here's the goal scorer, John McGinn. And as Luke Chambers was just alluding to a moment ago, wonderful finish for the lead. Still 1-0 to Nottingham Forest in the 58th minute in North London. Igor Jesus with the goal there that were the score to say that way. Igor might well spell the end of Igor Tudor as Spurs manager. He has been hanging on for some time now, despite the result in the week against an Atleti Madrid side that were already as good as through in the Champions League. Mavropanos comes out of defence, does really well with tippy toes, manages to find Jarrod Bowen, sprints down the right wing, gets to the byline, really good recovering challenge from Ross Barkley, and with the help of a double deflection it goes behind for an Aston Villa goal kick. And Villa Park and Emi Martinez absolutely love that bit of play from Ross Barkley.
He's really showed this afternoon, Ross Barkley. It's a brilliant break from Bowen. He round the far right-hand side towards the corner flag to try and get a cross in. Barkley's tracked him 45 yards, sprinting at full pace, and that's what we wanted to see for how many years with Ross Barkley, that consistency in central midfield to really affect a game of football, not just with his ball quality but without it as well, and he certainly showed that this afternoon when he's needed to.
At lunchtime, it finished Newcastle 1, Sunderland 2. Late drama in the northeast in the derby there. It's still 1-0 to Villa here, 1-0 to Forest at Tottenham. Match of the day to come tonight, 10:30 on BBC One. And still on 5 Live, 4:30, first major cup final of the season. The Carabao Cup will be decided between Arsenal and Manchester City. Full commentary live for you on BBC Radio 5 Live. That, as I say, 4:30 kickoff. Onana has it, 20 yards and gaining inside of the West Ham half. Gives it to Watkins, turns, finds Sancho, right side of the box. It bounces off Juve, then hits Cash, who was trying to offer an overlap, and goes behind for a West Ham goal kick.
West Ham really struggling out of possession here. They're trying to impose their 4-4-2 formation on Aston Villa by leaving Callum Wilson and Pablo up top, but every time Aston Villa do get the ball, they're looking for pockets of space right through the centre of West Ham's midfield in between Fernandes and Souček, and they're finding it too easy and too often at the moment because they're having to cover all sorts of space, and something that Nuno Espirito Santo has to have a little bit of a look at, otherwise it could be 2-0 in a heartbeat. 2 games in the WSL today as well. Earlier, Brighton against Liverpool finished goalless, a match that you heard in the company of our colleagues from BBC Radio Sussex here on 5 Sports Extra 2. Mavropanos slips, as does Sancho, but Mavropanos still wins the header despite the fact he's lying on the floor at the time. He can do no wrong at the moment, that man. Jared Bowen has it, wheels away from Rodgers on the right wing. Later this week, those two will be England teammates. Both England internationals will be available to listen to on BBC Radio 5 Live. Uruguay on Friday night, Japan a week on Tuesday. Here's Adama Traore, who did have a spell on loan at Aston Villa about 10 years ago. Never really made his mark back in those days, but that's a lovely ball to the back post. Wilson tries to find Bowen, and Bowen just couldn't get his feet arranged to be able to fire that goalwards. And now Villa counter-attack, and McGinn's got the ball, the all-important through ball that would have seen Morgan Rogers away, all wrong. And that's just the pass that has let Aston Villa down this afternoon on numerous occasions. They've had so much quality in the build-up to get to those positions, and John McGinn, it's a simple right-footed pass into the path of Rodgers, but he just under-hits it at the wrong angle, and Disasi tidies up nicely for West Ham.
Bowen has it again, gets away from Watkins, now fronted up by Digne. Right-footed cross is deflected, and that'll be another West Ham corner kick, a third in this second half. Another WSL game to tell you about, and I'll tell you this one because it's of interest, because Leicester City are leading against Aston Villa in the WSL, and what that means is that as it stands, West Ham will drop to the bottom of the WSL table. Meanwhile, in North London, Nottingham Forest have got a second goal. It is Tottenham 0, Forest 2. You can hear that on BBC Radio 5 Live. A pivotal afternoon, to use one of Nuno's words himself, at the bottom of the Premier League. Bowen's cross comes in to the edge of that 6-yard box, headed away as far as the French international Digne, and he'll put it out for a throw-in, not wanting to take any chances. What a huge goal that could prove to be at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, as Bowen bends another cross into the penalty area. Pau Torres chests it down, and Ollie Watkins hacks it away. Juve now to Adama Traore. Changes on the way meanwhile as Yuri Tielemans is getting stripped, but before anything can happen, Traore has it again. That's a really devilish ball, curling towards the back post. Callum Wilson turns to Traore and sort of apologises for not being in the right position. It was a really good cross, Luke Chambers.
It absolutely was, and it's the first time we've seen Adama Traore on the ball. You've brought him on to make an impact. Get him the ball to his feet, because he can create moments of brilliance, and he stands up Matty Cash, drifts inside a little bit too easily on his right foot, and delivers a fantastic cross along the 6-yard box, where you're expecting someone to just land on the end of it and equalise for West Ham. But substitutes are on us now, because Unai Emery, I think, doesn't want this to turn into end-to-end basketball match.
Very proactive management as he's just starting to see the tide turn. 65 minutes on the clock here. It was Morgan Gibbs-White who got the goal for Nottingham Forest. 2-0 they lead in Tottenham. A triple change on the way. Douglas Luiz, Leon Bailey and Yuri Tielemans. How they've missed him are about to enter the fray. Tielemans, who's not played since the end of January because of an ankle injury. Despite missing a couple of months of football, he remains Aston Villa's second most creative player this season. Here is Fernandes out to the muscular Traore once more, just with a Dharma on his back and the number 17. Cuts him past Cash, low ball towards the penalty spot. Poor clearance from Pau Torres. It fell to Pablo, who for a moment everything opened up for him. Konsa couldn't stay in front and Pablo has flashed a hack at it and it's gone over and wide. What a great opportunity that was for an equaliser. Here come the changes.
What a chance for West Ham to equalise. Drops to him absolutely out of nothing. It's again Amada Traore down this near side, delivers a cross, drops to Pablo's path, and you're thinking equaliser, but not to be for West Ham.
Well, here come those three changes. Leon Bailey, there's the roar for Yuri Tielemans, and Douglas Luiz as Jadon Sancho, Ross Barkley, and I think John McGinn will make way for Villa. Yuri Tielemans high fives Ross Barkley, strides onto the pitch, gets a few final instructions from a member of Unai Emery's coaching staff, and now gives the big tens to John McGinn. And finally, they have their Belgian talisman back in the middle of that midfield. He's clenching his fists, he's looking at his teammates and he's saying, come on, let's see this through. 3 Premier League defeats in a row for Aston Villa. How they've missed Tielemans, how they'd missed John McGinn as well. A word for him, Luke Chambers. 2 goals in 2, but that'll have to wait because Bowen is bearing down on the edge of the Aston Villa penalty area. Onana wins it back, picks his pocket and sets Morgan Rogers away in the opposite direction. He's already at the edge of the penalty area, hits it, it's spilled, and Watkins puts it in! The whole 10 goes absolutely wild! So does Unai Emery! And quick as a hiccup, Aston Villa turn defence into attack. Ollie Watkins has his first Premier League goal since January. Misery compounded for West Ham. As it stands, they'll stay in the bottom 3. But Aston Villa are returning to winning ways in the Premier League. They lead against West Ham by 2 goals to 0.
And what a moment for Ollie Watkins. So much made about him and his situation and being left out of that England squad. What a performance it's been from him this afternoon. He's led the line brilliantly and he gets his chance out of a strike from Morgan Rogers across Hermansen. It just drops to him absolutely perfectly. The whole crowd at Villa Park were on their feet waiting for the net to bulge, and it certainly did, but the credit has to go to Amadou Onana in that central midfield, winning the ball back absolutely brilliantly. The whole back 4 go and congratulate him as that goal goes in, because it's brilliant midfield play from him.
Just over 20 minutes remaining at a jubilant Villa Park. Ball flicks off the head of Pablo, who just 2 minutes earlier had such an excellent opportunity to equalise. That triple change gets made. I knew Yuri Tielemans was good. I didn't realise he was that good. He just walks onto the pitch. His very presence alone sees Villa go 2 goals to the good. And as you mentioned, quite rightly, Luke Chambers, what a way for Ollie Watkins to answer any of his critics, to put his hand up to Thomas Tuchel and say, I'm still here, you know. Mavropanos, first time onto the front foot, plays it forwards. Wilson can't control it. And Aston Villa will bring it away through Matty Cash. 2-0 here to Villa. 2-0 in North London to Nottingham Forest. Villa are closing the gap on the top 3 to just a point. Nottingham Forest are moving away from danger at the bottom, plunging Spurs into yet more trouble. And West Ham will have to settle. As things stand, you never rule anything out, to go into the international break still inside that bottom 3. Here's Morgan Rogers, edge of that West Ham penalty area. Now Leon Bailey, back to Rogers. First time, keeper spills it again. This time to Malik Diouf, who takes a touch past Rogers clears it away, comes off of Rodgers, goal kick. Going back to that goal, should Hermansen have done better with the keeping off of the Rodgers effort?
I think the ball has to go a lot wider, a lot clearer from danger from the initial strike from Rodgers. Rodgers' strike was okay, it wasn't a world-beating strike, so he has to take a little bit of responsibility, but credit to Watkins, right place, right time, and he's done that so often in his Aston Villa career.
Douglas Luiz has it, one of those 3 changes that Villa made a few moments ago to try and shore things up. West Ham don't really have the same sort of luxury. Made a double change at half-time. Did Nuno Espirito Santo bring in Adama Traore and Callum Wilson on? Neither able to have the desired impact just yet. Leon Bailey, the Jamaican international, back in the Jamaica squad for the first time in 8 months, incidentally, is on tightly braided hair. Got his first goal for Villa for almost a year on Thursday night against Lille. Digne wins a header, as does Souček. Now Douglas Luiz, and Tielemans shows brilliant vision in amongst all that head tennis to find Digne on the left-hand side. Back to Tielemans again. Digne back to Douglas Luiz. Villa just content at the moment to keep it between themselves on that far touchline. Have struggled with their injuries, as we alluded to it. Still missing Boubacar Kamara, who won't play again this season, Unai Emery suggests. They've had the 3rd most injuries in the Premier League this season. West Ham have had the 3rd least, by the way. There's a good article on all of that on the BBC Sport website, which is bang up to date going into this weekend's fixtures. Still to come on 5 Live today, the League Cup final, 45 minutes away from kick-off at Wembley Stadium, in the company of John Murray, Ian Dennis, Matt Upson there as well. In North London on 5 Live right now, it is Tottenham 0, Forest 2, with Jonathan Pearce and Paul Robinson. Morgan Rogers picks it up 5 yards inside the West Ham half, but his delivery into the feet of Bailey left something to be desired, as Fernandez now has it for the Hammers, gives it to Souček. Short pass for Adama Traore. Braids flapping on the back of his head, being tied back by an Alice band. Now Souček to Diouf on the left wing, and back to Souček again. If they are to get back into this game, Luke Chambers, West Ham need a goal, they need it quickly.
They do, and you mentioned the moment before Aston Villa's second goal. Pablo, the ball drops to him off Callum Wilson, and it looks for all the world a pretty simple half volley side foot finish into the far corner would have been the equaliser that West Ham so desperately craved, but the rashness of the finish just showed you where West Ham are at the moment.
Diouf gets away from Bailey though, and then tries to find Adama Traore, who keeps it in, gets to the byline, just keeps it in, but was so tight then that he couldn't do much with it, apart from put it into the gloves of Emi Martinez, who will be off on international duty with Argentina. Gets rid of it quickly, probably too quickly in the end, and West Ham have it back again. 73 minutes are on the clock. Jared Bowen is running down that right wing, a dark alley though. He needed some support and never really got it in front of the 3,000 travelling Hammers supporters, and Douglas Luiz will bring it away. Brazilian international, but they briefly overturn possession before it ricochets into the path of Digne. Now it's Konsa again. Konsa has it close by in the right side of the Aston Villa penalty area to Matty Cash. Tielemans briefly. Konsa will flick a clearance away down the right wing. Diouf knocks it back into the Aston Villa penalty area. Callum Wilson goes down under not a great deal of contact from Amadou Onana, and West Ham will build again through Disasi. Mateus Fernandes off with Portugal for the first time on the ball, right-footed, diagonal pass, asking way too much of Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and behind for a goal kick, and Aston Villa will just let a few seconds burn off the clock here as we approach the final 15 minutes. Tyrone Mings, one of your former teammates, gets up and goes to warm up along the near touchline.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at West Ham's squad, their team now, and I'm just watching Nuno Espirito Santo closely. Like, what do they do now? Where do they turn to on their bench? Have they got many attacking threats that can change this game in their favour? And I think that's the difference between the two Cubs, obviously in league position, but the strength that Aston Villa now possess on their bench has certainly been the turning tide. They've took back control of this game. It's it doesn't look like it's going any other way than an Aston Villa victory this afternoon now.
Of course, sold Lucas Paqueta earlier this season to Flamengo. They are missing Crescencio Somerville as well, who's been in such magnificent form. He was due to go away with the Netherlands, but now won't. And West Ham haven't won any of their last 6 Premier League games without Somerville in the side. Emi Buendia, who is another player that's in search of some form of late, is now ready to come on for Aston Villa. It's the sort of player that Nuno, the other side of that halfway line, arms folded, would absolutely love the luxury of being able to bring on. He just doesn't have that.
Well, in front of us you've got Buendia looking like he's going to come on. You've got Tyrone Mings in front of us. You've got Ian Matson. You've got Tammy Abraham. The list goes on for Villa, and it just shows you what West Ham are up against now, especially with the way they find their squad and the shape of it at the moment.
Emi Buendia, who scored 7 goals so far this season, but none since January, just 1 in his last 15 games, has had his impacts at times this season. You think back to that game here in December against Arsenal when the going was so good, when all the talk was that, well, could they possibly push Arsenal and Manchester City all the way for a league title? Not quite. Morgan Rogers is going to make way. He'll head off with England. He'll have a few days off first, though. Won't join up with Thomas Tuchel's camp until either Friday evening or Saturday morning. Walks off, looks a little bit disappointed with his lot this afternoon, Rogers.
I think he's definitely got more to offer the team at the moment. I think he's had some real good, bright breakaway. The second goal comes from his good work and driving at West Ham's defence, getting the shot off for Watkins to finish the rebound. But yeah, I think he's certainly got... He probably doesn't want to come off, right? We talk about having a few days off, but while he's on that pitch, it's where he loves to be. He doesn't want, and he doesn't feel like he needs that break or that rest. But I think Unai Emery certainly has the arsenal to be used and see out this game how he sees fit.
Tielemans has it, playing his first action since the end of January when he picked up that ankle injury. We've got 77 minutes on the clock and Aston Villa still lead by 2-0. The first from John McGinn, the second from Ollie Watkins, 1 in each half. It's still 2-0 to Nottingham Forest inside the final 15 minutes in North London at Tottenham Hotspur, and Matty Cash is running away from Tomas Souček. There's Leon Bailey on the right wing, onto his left foot, back to Cash again, little 1-2, finds Bailey, bit of space, low ball at the near post, is not put behind but put out for a throw-in, I think, next to the corner flag, away to our right-hand side.
Lovely bit of play again down this near side. Matty Cash has been brilliant going forward this afternoon. Real bright spark for Aston Villa. Lovely bit of combination play along the 18-yard line and this near side. 1-2 between him and Leon Bailey. Almost gets it across for a tap-in for Ollie Watkins, but it's cleared away for a throw-in.
Bailey gets the ball from Matty Cash's throwing, goes down under the challenge of Diouf. A good challenge according to the assistant and the referee. Assistant was stood right on top of it. Espirito Santo sending another couple of players out to go and warm up. One of them, Sungutu Magassa. But it is stark how limited the options are there for the Portuguese boss, who, of course, started at the City Ground this season, took Nottingham Forest into Europe, had a reported fallout with the club's hierarchy, and was soon out the door just 3 games into the Premier League season. And well, Nottingham Forest haven't quite stopped that door from swinging ever since. Buendia, right-footed cross, is headed away, out as far as Douglas Luiz, juggles it past Pablo. Dama Traore tells him to get up. It'll be a West Ham throw-in. Sarcastic cheers because Traore slammed the ball into the turf in giving it back to his teammate. He might not have meant it, he's just so strong. Long ball down the left wing, well held up by Wilson. We approach the final 10 minutes. Pablo has it again. How he may rue that opportunity that we've mentioned now 2 or 3 times since they had that chance to equalise. And quick as a flash up the other end went Villa and possibly put the game to bed. He'd lead by 2-0. Still 2-0 in North London as well. And the League Cup final is to come later on at 4:30. James Trafford does start in goal after all of the consternation as to whether or not he would for Manchester City. From a West Ham perspective, their form has certainly improved, but they are yet to beat any of the current top 8 in the Premier League table, losing 8 of their 12 matches against the Premier League's upper reaches. Their games usually mean goals, but none for the Hammers so far this afternoon. It has looked like they've struggled to create, and if it's not going to come from Bowen, it's probably not going to come from anywhere. Mavropanos can't keep it in. That'll be an Aston Villa throw in, probably 20 yards or so inside of Hammers territory. But for Unai Emery now looks like a picture of composure, which he wasn't certainly for the vast majority of this game. Their struggles of late in the Premier League, Luke Chambers, they can go into the international break all smiles.
Yeah, it's really important in these moments to try and take those points and that feeling into the international break as the end of the season approaches, and they've managed the game brilliant in this second half, get that second goal, and he's certainly been a big part of that with his gesticulation on the touchline, slowing things down, big arms, slow, settle down. He felt it was becoming too end-to-end, and he certainly encouraged his side to take control of it a lot more than they have done in the opening moments.
Douglas Luiz forwards to Watkins, tries to stab it round the corner for Buendia, who wasn't in the nearby vicinity, and so West Ham have it back through Wilson now up at the halfway line, manages to shepherd the ball in the direction of Adama Traore, steps between two Aston Villa players and then shuffles the ball to Malik Diouf. First time, left-footed cross, Pablo attacks it. Again, well dealt with at the back. I think it's Amadou Onana who gets the telling touch, but I just wonder whether or not Pablo can attack that with a bit more ferocity.
It's a lovely bit of play again. I mentioned Traore. Every time he's got the ball, he's caused West Ham no end of problems. Drives through the middle towards the 18-yard box and lays one into the path of Diouf, who whips another brilliant delivery in. And you think Pablo's going to get on the end of it. It almost mistimes the flight of the ball and just catches the edge of it. And Onana does brilliantly to see off the danger and head it out for a corner.
Matias Fernandez, both arms in the air, whips the ball into the penalty area. Konsa climbs high with Mavropanos and gets the ball away. Traore controls it on the far side of the Villa penalty area. Digne gets back and puts it out off of Traore, and that will be an Aston Villa throw-in, and a couple of changes now for Nuno Espirito Santo. Magassa is one of those who will enter the fray. The other one is Mohamedou Kante, with Thomas Souček and Aaron Wan-Bissaka making way. Souček will head off on international duty with the Czech Republic, and a very important bit of duty that as well. They play against Ireland in a World Cup qualifier, but he started to look a wee bit tired over the last sort of 10-15 minutes or so.
They're just bringing in some young legs, especially in that central midfield area with Magassa, and hopefully they can be that extra driving force. It'll be interesting to see who drops into that right back slot. I think they potentially may go into a back three now with Diouf and Disasi and Mavropanos occupying Ollie Watkins and Leon Bailey.
They've had to shuffle things around all afternoon. We shouldn't forget that Jean-Claire Todibo was injured during the warm-up. It meant that Freddie Potts had to come in, having not played a Premier League game in months and months. The last time he did play, he was sent off in the FA Cup at Burton. He was then hooked at half-time, and they've almost been playing catch-up ever since. This is Traore on the left wing for West Ham, goes down under the challenge of Cash. Both of them get back up again as Kante tries to win it back and then attempts to keep it in but can't do so. It'll be another Villa throw in. 83 minutes on the clock, and Villa still lead 2-0. It's still 2-0 to Forest at Tottenham as well, and that is surely the end of Igor Tudor, you would think.
It's a very, very I wouldn't like to be there as a Spurs fan or a Spurs player, manager at the moment. It's certainly somewhere where there is no place to hide, and credit to Forest, they've gone there and done an absolute top job.
Just 3 days after doing a top job in Denmark as well against Michelin, where they won on penalties. Watkins has it, stabs it away from Magassa, and he's bearing down on that West Ham penalty area. Excellent recovering challenge, but the danger isn't cleared just yet. Now with Bailey, right side of the box, left-footed cross, looking for Douglas Luiz, juggles the ball on his chest, then on his left shoulder. Somehow it manages to navigate out towards Luca Digne, holds off Mavropanos, and now waits for a little bit of support. Douglas Luiz, of course, who spent the first half of this season on loan at Nottingham Forest from Juventus before returning to Italy. He might not have even ever actually gone back to Italy. He might have just gone straight across the Midlands from east to west and bowled up at Villa Park for the second time in his career. Spent 5 years here as Bailey cuts in off the right wing, goes down. It'll be a free kick, a little bit soft, about 8 yards outside of the West Ham box.
Ball just looks a little bit tired now from a West Ham perspective. They're giving absolutely everything, you can't deny that, but they're just lacking in that sort of real quality. Can they break away, or are they just relying on one piece of brilliance from a Traore or a Jared Bowen? And at the moment, Aston Villa have just been too strong all over the pitch, winning the ball back. They've now got five fresh legs on the pitch, and it's just really, really encouraging from their perspective. And West Ham just hopeful now with the rest of this game.
85 minutes on the clock. They'd lost 3 in a row in the Premier League. Prior to this, they'd won just one of their last 5 at Villa Park, but look to be entering the international break with a smile on their faces. Tammy Abraham is the latest player to get stripped and ready to come on. His shorts low at the moment, so we've got quite the view of his white boxer shorts underneath as he bends over to try and sort his socks out. Lucadinha takes the left-footed curling ball towards the back post beyond everybody, and that'll be a West Ham goal kick. Abraham will offer an outlet and probably offer Ollie Watkins a bit of a rest here in the final few minutes. How relieved he will be after the disappointment of not being in the 35-man England squad to have got a goal today.
And I think you'll just see with the ovation that I would more than likely expect him to receive as his number goes up, as he starts to walk off the pitch from his fans this afternoon. Everyone will be on their feet. Brilliant performance from him, leading the line. Seemed to get his little bit of his mojo back, running in behind, creating chances, holding the ball up, attacking every single thing he can, and real positive from him today, and that'll be massive for Villa between now and the end of the season.
You called it. To a man, woman and child all around Villa Park. They're on their feet for Ollie Watkins, who gets a big pat on the back from Unai Emery, and that might just make the rest he's about to get in the next couple of weeks or so a bit more palatable for Watkins. And he knows in the 7 games that Villa have remaining when he comes back here after the international break, plus a couple at least in the Europa League, that he'll have his opportunity still to try and crowbar his way into that England World Cup squad. Header away from Cash is nodded back in the opposite direction from Magassa, who then hooks it with his right boot forwards. It's well brought down on the chest by Fernandez, who strides forwards but then asks way too much. I think of Callum Wilson. He does well to get there, but it takes him wide. He has to turn, give it to Bowen, who surveys his options, comes back to Magassa again. Bright yellow boots, low fizzing cross, headed away by the somewhat diminutive Douglas Luiz, always well bearded. Very jealous of that. Juve, 10 yards inside of the Villa half, held up by a combination of Tielemans and Bailey. That's brilliant from Tielemans. He picks the pocket of Kante as if he were a grown-up on the playground taking it off of a kid. But as soon as I say that, Villa overturn the possession again and West Ham have it. Cash tries to drag Adama Traore down, but he can't. And that might be a bit harsh here. It's symptomatic of Adama Traore's career at times. Unless he's absolutely bang on it, his strength and his power and his athleticism can get him into brilliant areas, and then when he has the opportunity to cross it, spoons it up in the air behind for a goal kick.
I'm trying to work out if it was a bobble that he's found on the turf at Villa Park, but he just brushes Matty Cash aside as he makes his way towards the edge of the 18-yard box down this near left-hand side in front of us. And you just think, can you deliver that ball? You've got your 2 strikers in the box, and he doesn't. He just blazes it off for a goal kick with his left foot, and real frustration as you see most of the West Ham fans start to make their way to the exit.
No, who can blame them? It's a long old journey back down to East London from here. You're hearing that Nottingham Forest have just scored a 3rd at Tottenham. Traore shrugs off Matty Cash, who holds his jaw. Ollie Watkins on the monitor in front of us is all smiles, as they will be if they are Forest fans at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But my goodness, what that atmosphere must be like now. I know the Spurs fans were really keen today to try to put all of the toxicity to one side, all of the protests, all of the anger, and just thoroughly get behind their team. There was always talk of everybody must wear white and all that sort of stuff, but my goodness, the air will be blue now with anger, with Nottingham Forest 3 to the good, and Taiwo Awoniyi, the player to have scored the goal. Long throw-in down the right. Bailey gets there for Aston Villa, tries to hold off a couple of West Ham players. West Ham will stay in the relegation zone for the foreseeable future. It's a long break now for them until they play in the Premier League again. The 10th of April, they will host Wolves They will play, of course, in the FA Cup before that in the quarter-finals against Leeds United. But a long 3-week break before they can try to breathe new life into their hopes of survival, which have dissipated here this afternoon. Poor touch from Pablo. 4 minutes have been added on as Bailey tries to break again, and Pablo wins it back. Joined in January from Gil Vicente in Portugal, where he'd scored 10 in 13 matches, yet to replicate that in Hammers colours. This is Malik Diouf now. Nice thread the eye of a needle ball forwards to Kante, long leg, strides into the penalty area and then slashes it hopelessly wide. Goal kick for Aston Villa with 30 seconds of the 4 minutes of additional time played and in the books.
Well, I think that sums up West Ham's attacking intention and quality this afternoon. Does brilliantly to get down the left-hand side in front of us, makes his way into the 18-yard box, drags it onto his left foot, and it's just that final bit of composure, a bit of quality that West Ham are going to need in that run-in towards the end of the season if they're going to remain a Premier League side. And he just slashes across it, no real composure, and it flies sort of 5 or 6 yards wide of the near post of Emi Martinez's goal.
2-0 to Aston Villa here, who will get back to winning ways in the Premier League for the first time since early February. They will remain fourth, just a point off of Manchester United, taking full advantage of United dropping points on Friday night and of Chelsea and Liverpool losing yesterday. At the bottom of the Premier League table as it stands, I'll go from 15th down. Leeds United 33 points, 16th Nottingham Forest on 32 points, 17th Tottenham 30 points, and then West Ham in 18th inside the relegation zone on 29 points, and then Burnley are back on 20 and Wolves on 17, almost as good as down. Here is Pablo for West Ham, tiptoeing along this left-hand side, can't keep it in, off of a Villa player last, and it'll be a throw-in for the Hammers. Diouf will come forwards and take it. 2 minutes of the 4 added on have been played. Still so much sport to come for you this afternoon on BBC Radio 5 Live. The League Cup final is kicking off at 4:30 from Wembley Stadium, so just over 20 minutes away. The company of John Murray, Ian Dennis and Matt Upson. Following the conclusion of that, 6:06, the football phone-in with Robbie Savage and Chris Sutton. 08085 909 693. You can call, get your phone call in. If you're a West Ham fan making that long journey back now to East London, we'd love to hear from you. Likewise, a Villa fan seeing your team win in the Premier League for the first time in coming on 6 weeks. Good times appear to be back as the likes of McGinn and Tielemans, who's on the ball now, are back. We've got 1 minute and 15 seconds of the 4 added on still remaining, and at the moment it's a keep away session for Aston Villa. West Ham can't get near them, their race is run. Luke Chambers. Long poking ball over the top though as Douglas Luiz tries to set Tammy Abraham away. Diouf does well, gets back and nods it to his goalkeeper.
You just feel like any time Aston Villa want to create an opportunity, want to play through the lines, want to really penetrate through West Ham's shape, they can do it with ease, and they nearly showed again there with Tammy Abraham through the middle. But it's been a real professional performance. West Ham started the game brightly in the first 10-15 minutes, but since Aston Villa have took the lead this afternoon, we have seen the quality and the ruthlessness that they do possess, and they haven't given West Ham anything.
Callum Wilson has it for the Hammers, edge of the Villa box to Jared Bowen. Less than 30 seconds of additional time remaining now. Pau Torres shuffles it to Luca Dean. At the conclusion of this, we will link up with our colleagues from BBC Radio Leicester at Welford Road for live commentary of Leicester Tigers against Bristol Bears in the Prem, as Tammy Abraham tries to score from 50 yards and drags it rather hopelessly wide. But on an afternoon such as this, such excess is allowed. As the full-time whistle is blown, Abraham can smile, as can everybody, with Aston Villa at their hearts. As Unai Emery, as always, shakes hands with the manager, immediately turns and marches down the near touchline. You'll next see him in Italy as Aston Villa go to Bologna in the Europa League. But they've beaten West Ham by 2-0. They close the gap on the top 3 to just a point. On the other hand, West Ham remain in the bottom 3. and will have to settle for that frustration for the next 3 weeks until they play again in the Premier League, and for a fortnight until they play Leeds United in the FA Cup. Luke Chambers.
Yeah, it's just been a brilliant performance from them, and the highlights were Ollie Watkins was the talking point before the game. How will he respond to that disappointment from him personally? But it felt like it was the galvanisation that Aston Villa have maybe needed about it's us against everyone else now, us against the world. It's all about what we do at Villa Park this afternoon, and they've ticked absolutely every single box. Watkins has got his goal. John McGinn's back scoring goals. Yuri Tielemans comes off the bench. Leon Bailey's come back into it. Every single player that they want to hit form at the right time has done that this afternoon.
There aren't many West Ham supporters left on the far side of the ground from us, but being led by Malik Diouf at the moment, the ones that are there have gone across to applaud them. Many are still applauding. Some of those West Ham fans, you can see though, are asking for more. They're waving their arms up in the air and saying we need more intensity. It was almost an apology from Malik Diouf. Nuno Espirito Santo never got that close to the West Ham supporters. He's now turned and he's walking towards the tunnel, hands shoved in his pockets. I could make out a big puff of his cheeks and a sigh there a few moments ago. What an important 7 games to come in the future of West Ham Football Club after the international break.
Yeah, now there's a man who's very, very frustrated with his team's performance, but unfortunately for West Ham, they've met a team this afternoon in Aston Villa who have been bang on form, but they're going to have to brush this one aside, get together across the international break, get some players back fit available, have that frustration, and credit to the fans that have stayed behind today. They have really clapped their players off. They see the efforts there. They've just met a superior side this afternoon, and you can come into this with as much hope as possible that you're going to take something out of the game. But when you're meeting a team as good as Aston Villa have been today, it's always going to be very, very difficult.
The highs and lows of Premier League football right in front of your very eyes on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra. Tielemans is back. John McGinn is back. Aston Villa is back. Ollie Watkins is scoring again. McGinn has 2 in 2. They're a point off the top 3. West Ham have it all to do at the bottom of the Premier League table. In North London, Nottingham Forest have beaten Spurs by 3-0 to further their misery. What an important 7 games are to come. You'll be able to hear so much of it on BBC Radio 5 Live after the international break. So here, thanks to that McGinn and Watkins goal, it's finished Aston Villa 2, West Ham United 0. But there is more live sport to come, of course, from Wembley with the League Cup final between Arsenal and Manchester City. Kickoff is less than 20 minutes away. My thanks to you, Luke Chambers. Been good fun this afternoon to have you alongside. We now join BBC Radio Leicester and their commentary of Leicester Tigers against Bristol Bears in the Prem Rugby.